Today on Cityline, it comes around once a decade. Find out why the census could change so much for Massachusetts. Also, the latest news on the state's hottest jobs, where they are and how much they pay. Welcome to Cityline. I'm Karen Holmes Ward. The U.S. Census counts every resident in the United States and is required by the Constitution to take place every 10 years. U.S. Census forms will be mailed out across the country on March 15th.
In the year 2000, 72% of the nation's households filled out their census form and mailed it back. We're asking the 233,000 households of Boston to do better than that in 2010.
Once you receive your form, just answer the 10 short questions and mail the form back in the postage-paid envelope provided. If you don't mail back the form, you may receive a visit from a census taker who will then ask you the same questions you find on the form. Among other things, the U.S. Census determines how many members of Congress each state gets and how many federal dollars go to each state for health care, roads, subways, schools, and more. Here to talk with us about the process is Claudia Smith-Reed. She's a local census office manager at the Boston South office that encompasses most of the city's communities of color and part of Brookline. Smith-Reed has worked to recruit people of color to reach out to neighborhood residents to explain how the census works. Cheryl Crawford is policy director for Mass Vote, best known as a nonpartisan voting rights organization. Crawford's attention is now dedicated to ensuring that census forms are returned for an accurate count. Welcome to Cityline.
Thank you.
Claudia, let's start with you. Tell us a bit more about your outreach efforts in communities of color and in the neighborhood in general.
Well, I would say that we have been really busy over the last 18 months. As the local census office located at Roxbury Community College, we've been diligent in trying to get many of our neighborhood and faith-based organizations involved in reaching people within our community to ensure them how critically important it is for them to fill out the census and to return it back.
Now, what are some of the misperceptions that people have in the community about the census?
I think that one of the critical points that we've been trying to make and to educate people about is that every person that counts translates into dollars. There's $400 billion that is distributed annually from the federal government. In Suffolk County alone, based on the Brookings Institute research, in 2008, Suffolk County received 10%, $4 billion that were allocated to a number of state agencies for very, very important services that are used in our community. It also represents our congressional representation in Washington. And the more people realize that their count of themselves equals representation and dollars to this state, I think we can make that connection.
Okay, and you know, Cheryl, I know you work very actively in the community and doing a lot with Mass Vote in terms of education as well. Tell us your perspective.
Well, what Claudia stated is very true and very important for people to realize, but we clearly understand that most citizens are more concerned about, you know, how does this affect me? What's in it for me? You know, why should I? You know, with the mistrust and everything that goes on with the government officials, what have you. People want to know, why would I do this? And, you know, it affects the schools, how many schools are going to be built into your community, the churches, where they're located, daycare programs, it affects senior housing, it affects WIC program, it affects many things that the citizens of our community need.
And also you said nonprofits in particular need to pay attention to the successful outcome of the census.
Absolutely. We truly believe that because of the mistrust, that the best way to reach the community is through nonprofit organizations. They are the people that provide the services in our community. People trust them. You know, so we have a campaign going on, Nonprofits Count, where we're communicating and working with and collaborating with many of the local nonprofit organizations to help get the word out.
Many people in the community are suspicious of the census because they think in some way it's connected to the INS, the Immigration Service, or the IRS. True, false? Tell us about the confidentiality involved.
The census is fully confidential. The information that is received through the Census Bureau is fully protected even prior to the Patriot Act. There is no access by the Immigration Services, ICE, INS, anyone. The information that you fill out, complete, and mail back goes into the database of the census and is not accessed by anybody.
And talk to us about the controversy around the actual checkoffs in terms of race.
The issue of race, basically, the census does not define who you are or how you want to define yourself. You will see opportunities, particularly if you're multicultural, you'll see opportunities to check off as many boxes as you need in order to identify who you are. I also would want to stress, too, as it pertains to the confidentiality and the like, is that if you just fill out the form and mail it back, we will not have to, you know, go through the steps of sending someone to your door.
So it's much less invasive if you just go ahead and fill out the form, because you will get somebody knocking on your door.
Yes, about $3,000 is spent in order for us to obtain the information, because it's critical that we count every whole person in the United States of America.
And Cheryl, any closing comment from you about the work of Mass Vote in terms of the successful census?
Absolutely. I mentioned earlier the collaboration that we have going on. We're hosting a huge event on March 20th at the Prince Hall Grand Lodge in Grove Hall, in which we're bringing in many of the nonprofit organizations and the census specialists, interpreters, so that people will have an opportunity to get their questions answered, you know, because this goes beyond not only be counted, but stay counted. You know, Mass Vote does a lot of voting. It's closely related, you know, because this brings about an even broader conversation. Once we get the money, what is the vision for our community? We want to have those type of conversations.
That's right. So it's a short-term concern, but also some long-term planning involved.
Absolutely.
In making sure that everyone is counted in the census. And Cheryl and Claudia, thank you so much for joining us today to give us a little insight into what's going to happen next week. Now, for links to information about the U.S. Census or Mass Vote, visit the CityLine webpage on thebostonchannel.com. When we come back, a new in-depth look at jobs officially designed as hot jobs in the Bay State. If the endless debate over escalating healthcare costs hasn't been enough to make you reach for a bottle of aspirin, consider this newly released study from the Crittenden Women's Union.
The CWU Massachusetts Economic Independence Index reports a single parent with 2 children needs an annual income of $61,618 in Massachusetts just to get by. Its companion report, Hot Jobs 2010, both released last week, identifies just 11 hot jobs, occupations requiring 2 years or less of higher education that pay at the Mass Index level. 3 years ago, when the last report was released, there were 26 hot jobs that could support a single-parent household.
Beth Babcock is the president and CEO at the Crittenden Women's Union. Dr. Charles Carter Jr. is the senior VP and COO at CWU, a Boston-based nonprofit committed to breaking the cycle of poverty through public advocacy in its mission to help low-income women and their families achieve economic self-sufficiency. Elizabeth, give us some more outstanding and surprising findings from this report.
Well, we last released the report 3 years ago, and at that time the number was, as you can imagine, about $58,000 for a family of three. And the numbers have gone up. What's interesting to me about it is that childcare has gone up faster than the other costs. And so now childcare actually is higher in every area of the state in terms of the family's percentage of income than rent is for a family with 2 children. That surprised me, and that was not the case 3 years ago.
And everyone knows that the cost of living on the East Coast is higher than other parts of the country, certainly in Massachusetts. Tell us some of the other factors that went into computing this salary of $61,000 that you arrived at.
Well, the data set is made up of publicly accepted data that is fair market rents for housing, statewide studies for childcare costs, the costs of food, the costs of utility, transportation. And this time the index was made in even more conservative fashion than in years past. In fact, it expects that a family will take public transportation where that's available, and where public transportation isn't available, that you'll own a car that has 170,000 miles on it. And even still, with all of the costs seeming as high as they are at that $61,000, $62,000 range, it doesn't include money for savings, vacations, entertainment, or education.
So that's very bare bones.
Bare bones.
And of course, closely related to the Mass Index report is the Hot Jobs report, because of course, in order to earn a salary of $61,000, you need to have a job. And I understand that the jobs that will fit the criteria in the first report are dwindling in Massachusetts.
Dwindling. Yes, they have shrunken since the last time we did the report 3 years ago, largely due to the number of vacancies, because these jobs have to be a job that you can get in 2 years or less, and that have at least 100 vacancies that we had the first time. And a lot of those have been reduced because we don't have that number, as well as the recession, the need to have a higher education, 2 years or more of higher ed or training, which is different than last time.
Now, Charles, we said in the tape that there are 11 hot jobs.
Yes.
What are the hot jobs, if you can list some or most of them?
Yeah, the categories they fall in are data systems, correctional jobs, sales, healthcare are the primary places where these jobs are. So if you want to get into being a dental hygienist, a correctional officer, radiology in hospitals, those are where a lot of the jobs are. Nurses are the highest positions that are open. We have about 2,500, and office administrative support is the lowest volume of positions that are open right now. It's about 104.
And for those who are trying to get into these hot jobs, you're saying that you need at least 2 years of higher education. So
that's right.
That's a community college degree can help you get into some of these things. Now, any statistics or information on how Massachusetts compares to other states, or how the city of Boston might compare to Worcester or Springfield in terms of these reports?
Well, certainly Boston has a higher cost of living than some of the other areas of the Commonwealth. Franklin County has the lowest cost, with a family of 3, that single-parent family, needing to earn about $48,000. Norfolk County has the highest cost, with about $68,000. And it's all a variation in the cost of childcare or housing. Those 2 items make up 2/3 of the average family budget. So there are differences there. There are also high differences in the types of jobs that are available in different parts of the Commonwealth. I guess what we can say is that in general, the Commonwealth is much more a knowledge-based economy than other parts of the country for the most part. And so the need for education beyond high school is really, really very strong in the Commonwealth.
And should we assume that the single-parent head of household that you're talking about in this study, are they women, men? And is there any breakdown in terms of Black, white, Latino?
Yes, when we look at the statistics of the median family income, there are significant disparities between families by race. So white families in Boston on average make about more than $90,000 a year, as compared to $41,000 for black families, African American families, and $32,000 for Latinos.
That's a big spread. That's almost $40,000 to $50,000 difference.
Right. So we're starting with African American families being 66% of them are below the income needed to be self-sufficient.
Just out the gate.
Just out the gate. And Latino families even higher. 73% are below the income needed to be self-sufficient.
And we're talking about women as head of households. Are most of the women, or most of the people in this study, female-headed household?
Yes.
Yes, about 3/4 of the single-parent families are headed by women, and it is about 2/3 of women, single-parent households, have less than a self-sufficient income. So. Being a single-parent head of household not only is harder because you have the one earner having to carry the family's entire income, but it also makes it harder because you have the children to go to school to get the additional education while you're working that can make the difference between self-sufficient income and income that can't support a family.
And Elizabeth, as we close out, just very quickly tell us how CWU is helping families break this cycle of poverty.
I'll let Chuck actually talk about it. He's in charge of our programs.
Yeah, we're developing creative pathways out of poverty. So one of our signature programs right now is called the Career Family Opportunity Program. It's in South Boston. There's about 20 families. It's a 5-year program where the goal is to have about $10,000 in savings and one of these hot jobs at the end. What's unique about this is that we are having the families decide how they're going to get to these goals. We're letting them determine the path, and then we are rewarding them for being able to do that. We're putting all of this in their hands versus, having a standard program.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds like great work, Dr. Charles Carter and Elizabeth Babcock. Thanks for joining us to talk about both of these reports and the work of CWU. Now, for links to the Crittenden Women's Union, Massachusetts Economic Independence Index, and the Hot Jobs 2010 reports, go to the Cityline webpage on thebostonchannel.com. Coming up, the crucial and sometimes life-changing role that mentors can play in a child's life. Having a responsible adult help a young person navigate life's ups and downs is crucial to early development and success. Mass Mentoring Partnership is an umbrella organization for 165 youth mentoring programs in the state. More than 3,000 youth are on waiting lists for mentors. And since the majority of those kids are people of color, the need for mentors of color is incredibly important. Joining us today are Suffolk County Sheriff Andrea Cabral and Duane Jackson, who is on the Mass Mentoring Board. Duane, let's start with you. You're an architect by profession. Why did you decide to get involved in mass mentoring and specifically around finding mentors of color?
Karen, mentoring has been a part of my life since college, and I probably found it to be the most effective intervention strategy for youth in changing their lives. I decided in *94 to drop all boards and focus my energy specifically on this issue because I thought it was the most compelling issue facing our African American specifically and Latino youths in the future.
Why? What research has supported that conclusion for you, both from a research perspective and just emotionally?
Well, experientially, as I indicated, I have had relationships with young men dating back to college. My wife and I lived with 10 kids, 10 young men through the Better Chance program in Winchester, and we saw the profound impact that had on their lives. Some of these men, I continue to have a relationship with. Your station, ABC, did a profile on a young man named Anthony Cato, who was a young man that I met in Almont Park playing basketball when I was a graduate student at MIT. This guy, he accredits in many ways our relationship changed his life. So from that perspective, it gave me a mission that I knew I would not be engaged in professionally. And as I said, our community is in a state of crisis, and I think that we need to intervene. And
Sheriff Cabral, this is an excellent point to bring you into the conversation. You see the process of providing a mentor for young people of color and young people in general as a preventative measure in terms of keeping those people out of the system. Talk more about what you've seen.
It clearly is that, because it's about choices, the choices you make minute to minute as a young person, and the influence of a caring adult who is encouraging, supportive, and is guiding a young person to making the right kinds of choices and resisting the number of temptations that are out on the street for kids today, makes a difference in whether or not that young person will ultimately become involved in the criminal justice system, ultimately involved with the Department of Youth Services, and possibly involved with the adult criminal justice system. And it's the impact of mentoring that drew me to it. I'm also on the Mass Mentoring Board and was recruited sort of actively by David Shapiro, who's the CEO. If you know David,
I know David.
He's irresistible. He is irresistible, but he does an amazing job. And the connections between what I deal with on a daily basis and the good work of the Mass Mentoring Partnership, and particularly this Mentors of Color campaign that Duane has devoted himself to and was one of the founders of, this can make a difference in my population. It can literally make a difference and decrease my population if we get more adults involved.
We're looking at some pictures of some mentors and their mentees. Duane, what is involved in the process of the relationship for these partnerships?
There are structured relationships that are assisted through a number of providers that establish the match. But most importantly, Karen, it's very simple. Have a meaningful relationship with a young person. Take an active interest in them. Be a part of their life. Engage with them in a substantive and a concrete way. It's not necessarily just going to the Celtics game. It's having someone to talk to guide, to counsel, to be a friend. And
it can be a conversation on the phone.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be in person all the time.
Absolutely. And I think that's the misconception that I always have to be with someone. This is phenomenal commitment that I must make as if it's my own child. No, it's about a relationship.
And you don't have to be an architect, a sheriff, a doctor, a lawyer to be a mentor.
Anyone can be a mentor. Anyone.
And people that decide that they perhaps don't have the time even to invest in mentoring, by your profession, by your work, you can support mentoring. If you're a lawyer in a law firm who's working so many hours and you can't do it, devote some space in your law firm, sponsor a mock trial competition, or just have groups of mentors and mentees come in and hear from the lawyers who practice in different disciplines in the law what it's like to be a lawyer. If you're a police officer, if you're a teacher, if you're an artist, do an artathon with mentors and mentees and just have them come in and whatever kind of artwork they want to do, you just create a bulk of art that you can then show. You can support mentoring in so many ways. It's important to have mentors and mentees, but you can support mentoring even if you don't have the time to be a mentor yourself.
Because, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, make your life available.
Exactly.
I mean,
because what you've both seen is that what you want to do is just give this young person a look into another world.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. If you look at who ultimately gets into trouble, and even if they don't get into trouble in the criminal justice system, but simply fall by the wayside, and their lives are not amounting to much, it is about the narrowness of their world. They don't see themselves as possibly doing anything more beyond the several blocks in which they live, going any further than that. When you open up the world to a child, that's what makes the difference.
Very good. It's all good work. Did you have a closing thought?
No, that was so profound. It's so true. And open their universe, make a personal commitment, make it happen.
All right. Sheriff Andrea Cabral and Duane Jackson, thanks for all the work you do at the Mass Mentoring Partnership. Everybody, don't forget to check out the BostonChannel.com Cityline page for all the contact information and other resources from today's show. We're going to leave you now with a music video that was put together by the U.S. Census. It's an effort to educate young people about the count through music. Have a great day.
Until you mail it back, the census a tool, let's make an impact.
Yeah, we need a resolution, a solution, evolution to be a part of this movement. It's evolution. We need participation for better schools and hospitals. The census, the tool to make it all possible. Pursue it. There's nothing to it. Every woman and man, they can do it.
We can't move forward until you mail it back. The census a tool, let's make an impact.
Yeah, we need a resolution, a solution, evolution to be a part of this movement. It's evolution. We need participation for better schools and hospitals. The census, the tool to make it all possible. Pursue it. There's nothing to it.